So ladies, I know we're talking about the British tabloids and I want to stay talking about media, but I want to talk about podcasts. Now, actor and comedian Monique in America, so she was in the Parkers and a lot of great things, but she was recently on Tamar Braxton's podcast called Under Construction. Now, during the chat, Monique says that she calls her husband Daddy. I don't know why I said it like that, but that's what she calls him. Now, Daddy. So, now, in a romantic relationship between two consenting adults, that term daddy can usually have sexual connotations, but not for Monique. She says, and I quote, she calls her husband daddy because he's raising me and he's given me a lot of things that my father didn't. Now, I wanted to ask you ladies, would you ever call your husband or partner daddy? And do you think that all pet names are okay, or are there some that should be off limits?
Personally, the daddy pet name is not for me, nor is Zaddy. None of it, because I know people flipped from daddy to Zaddy and felt like it was better. But all of
I remember that song.
Yes, exactly.
It lasted for so long, Anissa.
It was
very so long.
Luanda, I'm not even sure that it's fully finished. It's still lasting. So I'm not here for daddy or Zaddy, but I cannot lie. I am the pet name princess. I have 100 pet names for all the people in my life, and sometimes it just comes from my spirit within and just pulls itself out, and it can be the most random thing ever, and so I am a big pet name person. Like, and my pet names can be very random. Like, for example, if I'm thinking about my best friend, I've got a best friend, and sometimes I call him my love. Sometimes I'll call him honey. Sometimes I'll call him sir. I'll be like, sir. Or sometimes I'll call him Jay. It's just what it is. I remember my first boyfriend. The first time I saw him, he wore a beanie hat. So I called him Beanie for the entirety of our relationship. I barely ever called him his name, to the point where my friends thought his real name was Beanie. I'm just a pet name person. It's just who I am. And so for me, I feel like, say the pet name that you personally feel comfortable with. Now, I don't personally feel comfortable with daddy, so that's why I don't use it. But if you feel comfortable with daddy, then do you, boo. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as you. Like, I don't believe that what happens between two consenting adults is any of my business. But in terms of if I would do it personally, like, I have been asked and I have politely declined.
To what?
To call someone daddy.
You gotta tell that story, girl.
I always want to know the context, but I don't know if you're allowed to say it.
You can't.
I don't know if you're allowed to say it.
Come through with a whole drink, Luanda. Please, can we have some context around that one?
Are you allowed to say the context or no?
Just the things that don't expose, please.
I don't know how I could say it without
giving away too much.
Yeah, I don't know how I'd be able to say. Just that someone asked.
Okay, let's fair.
Okay. And I politely declined because it just doesn't. It just doesn't do anything for me.
Did he take it personally? Did he take it personally when you said no? Or was he fine with it?
I didn't see him again after that. It wasn't because of that. It's just that, like, I would never know because that was the last time we hung out. So I think it's difficult because I think with Monique, I actually listened to the whole podcast and I actually, like, I'm really happy for her and the relationship that she has. Like, she was saying things like, I've been with this man for 15 years and I am in love like I'm 15 days in. She said, you know, her son said to her, like, if I don't want to get married unless my marriage looks like yours. And I think she almost started crying because she said that she would never have said that about her parents. So I think she's actually in a very beautiful relationship. And I don't think I would have understood that unless I listened to the whole podcast, because that snippet of what she said, like, oh, he's raising me, he's doing this and doing that. I think when we're saying something like daddy and then we're going to say something like raising, I feel like she could have worded it a little bit differently because really, I think really what she was trying to say is that they're both encouraging each other to be the best version of themselves, and they're both giving each other tough love to the point where they know their worth. just like, there was a moment where, this is the last thing I'll say because I know I'm talking a lot. There was a moment where she was going for a deal with BET and she got a number and she was like, this is the biggest number I've ever seen in my career. And he said, we're sending it back. And then she got another number and she was like, okay, this is nuts. We have to take this deal. And he's like, we're sending it back. And he was like, you were always talking to me about knowing your worth, know your worth. And then she was able to close the biggest deal in BET history for her time slot because of his encouragement. So I think when she said raising, it's like raising her to see her for who she can really be, instead of like, brush your teeth before bed, because when we're using it in that context, like it sounds a bit wild, but I'm happy for her in her relationship. It's just not something that makes me feel, it doesn't elicit any feelings for me, and so therefore I'm going to leave it there.
And personally for me, basically, it's also awkward in my mind if somebody asked me, like I've never been in that situation in Luanda where somebody has asked me to call them daddy, but I don't know if this is strange, but I still call my dad daddy. So it would just be a huge conflict of my mind if I called somebody else daddy. But I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I listened to what Monique was saying, and I understand the sentiment of when she was talking about him raising her basically and not getting the things that she got from her father, because I think in general that people, just us as human beings, sometimes we lack things from our family and we seek those exact things in our partner. I'm agreeing with you in that I think she worded it weirdly, but usually like if somebody grew up with not that much affection in their household, sometimes they want a more affectionate partner, or if they grew up with really bad communication in their household, they want their partner to communicate very well. So I understood the sentiment of seeing things in him that she had not experienced and so she liked, but it's just, I think it's the way she worded it that makes it sound like there's this undertone of parental role play. And the fact is, it's not even just her, because you'll see a lot of people on the internet will be like, that's my daddy and he's my daddy and my zaddy, and if they're Spanish they might say papi and all this kind of stuff. Like it's people's bags. And when I was reading articles about it, they basically said that they haven't really found much research as to why people find it appealing, apart from that it sometimes creates this whole submission kind of dynamic, and they like that, especially when they're fantasizing. A lot of people would think you'd fantasize about dominance, but most people fantasize about submission, and that's kind of where it all fits in. For me, when I thought about it after all of that, it still felt like a no.
Do you know what, Anissa? I read that same article like in the Metro, and they were saying like 87% of people want to be the subordinate, which shocked the hell out of me. But they were saying 87%. That it's actually 87%. 87%. But then they try to flip it. I don't know what you ladies think about this. They try to flip it and say, oh, but the subordinate is actually the most powerful because they get to say what they want and how much they want and how much of it that they want. They're really telling the dominant what goes. I don't know about that. So I think for me, never will call Jonathan daddy. Never. That's my husband. Never gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. I'm gonna say it.
Justin Bieber said never say never, Sophie. What are you doing?
The never cancels out the never, which is never.
Do you not think it might just slip out once?
Never. Because do you know what? The relationship that I have with my father, I can't ever take that name and translate it over into my romantic relationship, because that's what it is for me. I'm like, when I say daddy, I think of my dad, and there is nothing remotely romantic about that relationship, and I wouldn't even want the connotation to come with it. But when I saw that people were saying they say daddy because they're like in that subservient type of thing, it's kind of calling them a boss, or, kind of calling them the lead or the head or whatever. And then they said in this article, well, why don't you call them like sir or master? And they were like, it just doesn't have the same affectionate tone.
I'll just call them a boss.
I don't get it. But I definitely feel if that gets you off, then fine. Because I was saying a lot of women who want to call men daddy, it's because they're very powerful in their own lives. And now calling him daddy allows them to be vulnerable in a way that their normal life and professions don't allow them to be. Do I believe that? That's all I'm going to say about that.
I just don't know what I'd do if somebody asked me to call them daddy. I just need to know the context. Like, are we having dinner and you ask me to call you daddy, or we're in a more intimate setting? Like, I just need to figure out the context.
I understand. What do you think, though? But you know what? I read something in the article, I think it was Times of India, but they said, and I thought that's very true, we don't have a problem with calling someone baby, and we don't conflate that with a child. So why do we then have to conflate daddy with meaning like inappropriateness when we like, you call him baby? And I was like, okay, you got me on that one. That's an interesting point.
I read that, Sophie, and I actually don't agree, because I think that we kind of do. And I think a lot of this whole conversation, we've been talking about women calling men daddy. We haven't mentioned men calling women mommy, which pretty sure Monique's husband called her mummy as well.
They would never do that.
I think like when we're saying things like baby, it's like you're my baby, like I'm taking care of you, you're my thing to nurture and love and do all this like things, like obviously not in a parental way, but again, that's why when you mentioned why aren't people saying master or sir, it's like it's not affectionate. When baby, you're doing all those same things, but in a romantic way. So I think it kind of is. And I think like men will probably be more likely to call their woman baby, and women will probably be more likely to call their man like babe, if that makes sense, because it's a little bit less submissive. Or
I usually find it the other way around, actually. I find that usually women call their partners baby and the men call their women babe. But you've just brought up such an interesting point, Luanda, and have really scrambled my mind when you said like us calling them babies like a nurturing thing, and oh my gosh, my mind is scrambled. Sorry, Sophie. Go ahead.
No, like I was gonna say, I agree with Luanda like part way, but I guess I'm only speaking from my personal experience in terms of I will call my husband babe. I never call him baby. Right. No, I don't think I do. Baby. I call him babe, but I think it comes from a definite term of affection. But in terms of a need to kind of mother him, hell no. Like I'm not interested in mothering any man at all.
Yeah, but that's why I think why the small differentiation, like that nuance between babe and baby, that's why I mentioned it, because I think obviously we've been only talking about heterosexual relationships. So with men, they kind of want that feeling of dominance. They want that feeling of, oh, how can I have power over you, but in a respectful and affectionate way. And that's why all of these terms are floating in and out, I think.
Do you know what? I would probably... I see what you mean. And I say, would you say that it's men wanting to be dominant, or the fact that society tells them that they should be? Because I don't know. I would personally think, do we think men engage with that on that level? Now, an article that I read was saying men are going to be more likely to call women, and especially women in the service sector or entertainment sector, honey or babes or baby cake and stuff and things like that. I think that is about sexuality, and I think that is about a level of dominance. But I think when you're in a relationship, and like we were saying, two consenting adults, I feel that the respect that I have for my partner and the respect that my partner has for me, I wouldn't say that he specifically tries to show his dominance through the pet names that he calls me, because I think they are a term of endearment. But I think it's going to change in different circumstances and depending on who's calling what who. Because hopefully, if my husband wants to be dominant over me as a woman, hopefully that will show up before the point that we've actually committed to each other. Because I'm not here for that again on any level. I'm here for a relationship of equals.
Yep. Ditto.
This daddy baby thing has really rocked my world.
Okay, so what's the craziest pet? Oh, well, I was going to ask you, lady, what's the craziest pet name that you've ever been called? But I don't know if we've got time.
My name? I don't know. No. Because I'm thinking of nothing. No. I have been referred to as a pet name, woman. I know that sounds wild. It's just like, woman, what are you doing? Woman, where are you? Woman.
Okay.
I get that.
I mean, sometimes I have a lot of nicknames like within my family. Like, I don't think I've had any crazy ones in a romantic way, but I have like loads, like all of my family members, we all have about 5 different nicknames.
Tell us one,
that we've
please.
like. So like growing up, I had Scraps. That was probably like the most popular one when I was a kid, because I was really thin. And so the joke was that I looked like I'd only been eating scraps, so my nickname was Scraps.
Aww,
and then I had
so
Loopy Loo, because I was always crazy, like I was always nuts, and I still get called Loop. So Scraps, Loopy Loo, Loops. Oh my gosh, what are the other ones? There's too many. They're all referring to either like me being nuts or me being thin. So.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I don't know what to say.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't really have that many pet names, but for my husband, if I call him by his name, he probably knows that I'm not very happy with something he's done. So I'm gonna leave that one.